Support for Heart and Hand is brought to you by Manscaped. Now, folks, I've had a tough couple of weeks and I didn't have a lot of hair left to pull out anyway. But one area where I do have hair, and frankly, I'm going to keep it, is in my trousers. However, I know a lot of you, much to my own surprise, enjoy nothing more than a shorn scrotum, as Dr. Evil told us all those years ago. It's breathtaking. And I'm also reliably informed it's popular with your partner who enjoy that sort of thing if they don't want to wade through a forest to get to the goodies. But, yep, Manscaped, if you are one of those people who enjoys, shall we say, going au naturel in the tackle department, that's the company to go with. It's sleek, well-designed, optimised trimmer, and it makes shaving one of your favourite things to do in the bathroom. I didn't know that we had a list of favourite things to do in the bathroom. But anyway, the new 4.0 is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this thing, I tried it on my face and it works. So, I mean, with the slightly less, shall we say, toughened up hair in the kind of front bottom area, then I think you'll be on to a winner. Manscaped engineered the ultimate body trimmer by focusing on intelligent functionality. It's very comfortable grooming experience. This is a fourth generation trimmer, and it's a cutting edge ceramic blade, so it'll reduce grooming accidents. Nobody wants a nick on their nuts, let's be honest. So if Manscaped are the thing for you if you want to hit the dancing this weekend. Your face might be covered, but let's make sure that your cock and balls aren't. All you need to do is go to manscaped.com and use the code Rangers. That's 20% off and free shipping if you go to manscaped.com and use the code Rangers. Don't send me photos.
Good evening, welcome to your second free Heart and Hand show of the week. I'm your host, Adam Thornton, and on tonight's show we'll be recapping last night's 2-0 defeat to Lyon and looking ahead to Flag Day at Ibrox this Sunday against Motherwell. Joining me to do this is James Tessier. Tess, how you doing?
I'm very well, thanks my friend. Yourself?
I am not too bad, thank you, not too bad. And we also have Andy McGowan. Andy, how's things?
I'm pretty good considering. I'm pretty good.
Let's start with last night's game then, Tess. I think we'll just jump into it. I'll start with you. Obviously, always disappointing to lose any game, regardless of opposition or scenario. But what were your thoughts on it overall?
You know what, mate? I'd been saying all week that it'd be 2-0 to Lyon. I don't know why, but I just had a feeling that's what was going to happen. Now, I'd never bet against my own team, but I sort of wish that I had. So, in a way, I'd sort of conditioned myself for defeat because I was expecting it. But the way we started, I thought we started really well. I'd argue that in parts of that first half, it's up there with the best we've played all season. Second half wasn't much cop, let's be right. But that first half performance, mate, that was like we're starting to get the old Rangers back.
Yeah, Andy, what's your thoughts on it? I thought overall Lyon deserved their win. They will come on to their goals, but they were pretty much their only two good chances of the game. What was your take on it overall?
Much like Tess, I didn't expect much. I thought last night was a free hit, and I know we're Rangers and we shouldn't be getting into games thinking that, but I think always get a heavy dose of realism in terms of the differences between these teams we're playing. You've seen it last year with Benfica, massive budgets, and we competed very well. It was the same kind of scenario last night. If we got anything out of it, it would be, a good result. So I thought, you could frame it as a wonder goal and a lucky goal. But I kind of thought Lyon were pretty much in control for most of the game. We huffed and puffed. We didn't have any real zip. I don't think we, apart from maybe the Kent chance, Lundstrom chance, and the free kick for Tavernier, there wasn't much kind of cutting edge for us at all. So I'm disappointed to lose. I don't think we performed poorly per se. I think we could have done a lot more. I think a fully firing and really fit Rangers team that we seen last year would have probably gave Lyon a far greater game. But it had shades of Braga. Braga played us off the park at home, if you remember, for the first hour, and we were 2-0 down, and you live with that hope because of that. But I don't think it was ever on the cards. We would have needed something to really spark last night, and there was nothing there, to be honest.
Yeah, it was strange. I don't really know how to describe Lyon, because I think, like you said, when you get that 2-0 up, when you're a team of their quality, they're going to see out the game, and you can say overall they had a couple of gears to go up, and we always do that. I think when we talk about opposition teams, we always say they look like they had another level, but didn't. It's almost like it's a positive for them that they could play better than that. Whereas for ourselves, we never seem to say that. We never seem to say, but we could play better. We didn't play our best either. For me, and if we had, like you said, if it was last year or even shades of Braga, then who knows. I just felt like it was really weird overall. It did feel like a kind of end-to-end game at times, but like you said, you've pretty much named all the chances that occurred. It was a wee bit of a non-event in that side as well, so it kind of felt a bit strange. Let's get the goals out of the way first then, Tess. As Andy said, Kent loses the ball on the halfway line. I think they crowd him out quite well. There's three of them on him, and there was a couple of men on him at every time. It's obvious that they knew his danger on the counter, but we end up getting caught. Such a good finish from Akambi. The manager spoke after the game about how the team had been drilled not to let him cut in on his right foot, as he's got that quality. It is Lundstrom who moves over to cover, which is what we expect in these situations. But Tess, I think he could have been slightly quicker to actually get over to close him down. But either way, he can't be letting him cut in. But it's an incredible finish as well, so I can't really be too hard on him.
What we've got to bear in mind is that was a world-class finish. It's one of them whereby, if unfortunately I wasn't there last night, but if I'd have been there, I'd have given it a good round of applause because it was magnificent. So you could argue that if that was an ordinary player, shall we say, and we'd given him that much space, we wouldn't have been punished in such a manner. But as you say, if the players have been told not to let him cut inside on his right, and that's what he's done, then obviously we've seen the outcome of that. So that makes it disappointing. I thought we could have done better in the run up to it. But again, like I say, you can't legislate for somebody pulling a shot like that out of the bag, because that was absolutely world class. But again, we could have closed down a bit more. It is disappointing because that goal for me came out of nothing. I thought up until that point, Rangers had been on top. We'd been knocking on the door, not quite got through, but we had momentum. We were really, the crowd were really getting behind it. It was really looking good. And that goal has sort of knocked the stuffing out of us for a bit. So, again, there's not much you can do when a player's going to shoot like that. But, again, they could have closed him down a wee bit more. And it was disappointing the timing because we were really, really starting to turn the screw on them at that point.
Andy, you mentioned Kent having a good shot and Lundstrom as well. I think this is probably our best spell of the game, really. I was quite pleased actually in this first half when we seen Goldson getting on the ball. The amount of diagonals he was getting over to Barisic or into Kent, I thought was really good. There was a couple over the top as well that we can come on to talk about Kent in more detail later on. But I felt if he had a wee bit more pace about him last night, where he looked quite slow, I felt like there was a couple of opportunities in there. I wouldn't go as far as saying their defence looked ropey at times, but they certainly weren't an brick wall. I felt that there were some gaps that we were finding, but I think overall the difference was that Lyon defenders had enough pace to get back to cover for their mistakes. But overall, first half, what did you think? Is that fair?
I think that's fair. I think so. To talk about the Lyon defence, right? To my eyes, right, I'm not an expert. I thought they played a pretty high line when they didn't have the ball, and that's where you're referring to the diagonals that Goldson's so good at. And there was a couple of opportunities we thought we're nearly in there, and I don't think we've done it enough, or maybe Lyon got wise to it, because you had a couple at Barisic, you had a couple of the top to Kent, and I think there was one to Alfie. Mm-hmm. So there was obviously a few dividends that could have been derived from that if we'd have kept with it, but I thought the first 20 minutes both teams were sloppy. They were getting the ball away, there was misplaced passes, and as Tess says, we were creating stuff without being a powerhouse. And I don't know about you guys, but I just didn't have the belief last night that we had enough to really hurt them. And I think they knew that. They had a kind of economy of movement as a team. They're very well drilled. They were actually very similar to the last Peter Boys team that came over with Leverkusen, weren't they? The way they shape up, the way they move, the way they play without the ball. You mentioned about crowding out. I mean, they're crowding out and their harrying was really brilliant, I thought.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing we've lost a wee bit since last year. So last year we were really, really good at hunting in packs, winning the ball back high up the park. And it's that you miss the likes of Ryan Jack. And I'm not going to subscribe to, Ryan Jack becomes a better player because he's not played for us, but he is kind of integral in nights like last night for setting the tone in terms of retrieval. Davis does it as well. He had a kind of a wee bit of an off night by his standards last night, so we were missing that wee bit. They were doing to us what we should really be doing to them, which is getting their ball players under pressure. Their two Brazilians were brilliant, I've got to say. They were Champions League players. Paqueta, who's the one in Guimarães.
Yeah,
I thought the two of them were, silk, and I think they're probably. I know Guimarães is one of them's been at Milan, isn't he? I think they'll go into bigger and better things, but I thought they were brilliant. So you're up against a top class midfield last night, you've got to say, and I no going to be popular. I was glad Dembele wasn't playing because I think that would have given them the cutting edge that Slimani didn't he? So, we could have went in at half time with something. My feeling at half time was we were okay getting in at 1-0. I've got to be honest. I thought we're still alive. They'd missed a really good chance for a cutback just before half time with the right back. Gusto missed one. So I felt lucky to get in at 1-0, but we were still in the game.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think you're spot on. Paqueta and Guimarães were very good. I thought Emerson at left back as well, who's obviously just off the Euros with Chelsea. I thought he showed his quality in the game as well. I think overall they deserved the win, I would say. I know we're just talking about the first half just now, but I think overall they deserved the win, and there's an element we'll come on to later on around whether or not they just shut up shop when they could have went for more goals or what. So we can discuss that when we get into it. But Tess, coming out for the second half then, I had hoped, like we do so many times against in the Gerrard era, he comes out after half time and we go at teams, we come out as the aggressors more often than not. But I actually thought it was Lyon who did that, and they kind of looked like they had a wee bit of renewed hunger about them. You could argue we finished the first half better, but they came out and they seemed right up for it for the first 15 minutes or so of the second half, and they obviously get that second goal right in the middle of that. Again, it's one of these things. It's not a positive and negative thing. Just because they were properly up for it doesn't mean that we weren't, and maybe they just were better in that period of time. But I definitely thought they had the upper hand in that first 15 or 20 minutes, so the first half.
I was quite worried at the start of the second half that we were going to get blown away. Lyon came out. They were like a completely different team. Rangers were chasing shadows. I mean, okay, their second goal was a comedy of errors. It's pinball in the box, and when that happens, the ball can go literally anywhere. And unfortunately for us, it came off tab and went into the back of our net. But no, I thought that we were going to get blown away, and that's something that under Gerrard hasn't happened. We've never lost the goal, and then apart from Malmo with the two goals in 5 minutes or whatever, we've never really had it conceded and then just gone to pieces. So that was at the back of my mind. But at the same time, it was night and day from the first half. Again, we've said Rangers started the first half well, finished the first half well. Who did we play? Lyon. Lyon's goal was an absolute wildy. You can't legislate for things like that. The second half was complete about face. Lyon were giving us no time on the ball. When they had the ball, we couldn't get it off them. They were pinging it about. Every time they came forward, it looked like a threat. And it looked like Rangers were in danger of being overwhelmed. And the ironic thing is, it was them scoring the second goal that I don't know if they took their foot off the gas or if we decided, no, we need to wise up, perhaps going to get a bit of a doing. But ironically, it was their second goal that changed the tide of the match again. And then it was, again, Rangers were once again knocking on the door without really... There wasn't that same zip that we've seen from the team in Europe, certainly last season. There wasn't the same intensity. We were the better team after they got their second goal, but they didn't really need to push forward because they had 2 goals in the bag. So yeah, like I said, at the start of the second half, mate, I was worried, and it took their goal to get us start playing again.
It did. Andy, Tess mentioned the second goal there as a comedy of errors. I don't think we're far wrong. It's just these fine margins that good teams are going to punish you with. But in saying that, Kent does really well to win the ball back on the edge of your area, and then I think rather than just trying to clear it or pass it out of danger, he looks to try and twist away from his man and keep possession. He obviously gets crowded out, like we said earlier on, and loses the ball. From that point, we're kind of always in the back foot, but there's a lovely little reverse pass from Paqueta into the box. Great save from McGregor, but then from that point, it's really just a lottery, I think, for me. Ball drops to Guimaraes, I think it was. Balogun sticks a leg out, it then falls to Slimani. Goldson blocks it on the line, and it hits off Tavernier and goes in. There's 3 situations there that just don't fall our way. While the situation at the start for Kent to lose the ball and then to get the initial shot is poor for me, it's a really tough one to take, I think, particularly at that moment, and to go 2-0 down against this team, that was a bit of a sore one to happen at that time.
The finality of the goal was unlucky, but if you let players like Paqueta get in those positions with their 2 fullbacks, and then you're nearly in the 6-yard box at that point, you're in the shit, and Slimani should really have finished it, to be honest. Right, I mean, Goldson managed to get in front of it, but Slimani should have finished it completely. It was actually a pretty poor miss for him. So you can say he was unlucky, but you can say he was lucky that Slimani never finished it. So I think it was the build up to that play made it a good goal as far as I'm concerned. But McGregor made a fantastic save. But we're kind of losing those goals. We're losing goals that we wouldn't be losing last season. Now, whether that's just because last year was off the scale in terms of concentration, focus, will to win, whatever it is, we're kind of losing goals. Like, you look back at the Malmo game, and there was goals in there that you're like, it's no good enough. It really, at any level, it's no good enough for Rangers. So, but the second one in, it was all over. It really was, and I do think that they have a brain as a football team, that they knew that we were going to have to come out a wee bit more. And we did, but we did it very slowly because we made substitutions incrementally, and I think we only had 2 midfielders on at the final whistle, but they knew that they were going to have other opportunities. We actually did well to kind of push the game from our point of view to chase it without losing more goals. That's my God's honest truth, because if we went to 2, I thought we're going to have to open up a wee bit here. We're going to have to get bodies forward, and they were very, very well equipped for picking it off. So, 2-0 actually, I wouldn't say it flattered us or flattered them. I think we done well to get to the game 2-0, given that, as I say, substitutions changed. It would 4 strikers on, didn't we? Sakala, Wright, Roof, and Morelos finished the game, didn't he?
Yeah,
I can't remember. But so we'd 4 forwards on there. So the fact that we never get picked off is something in itself. But there's a lot to learn. I mean, perspective. I know I wasn't gutted or anything coming out the ground last night, because as Tess says, this is a team, and I don't like to say turnover versus your turnover, because that could be levelled at us in Scotland, but it's true. I mean, this is a €300 million turnover club. They've got vast resources by comparison to ours, and we're punching above our weight, if you want to look at it that way. They are Champions League. They should be in the Champions League, just as Benfica last year were a Champions League team. And it's only natural that the level of quality that buys them is probably going to show up over the course of 90 minutes. I think that's the first time I've been beaten the group stages under Gerrard at home.
Yeah,
I think that's the case. So we've really only had Leverkusen and then obviously Malmo this year for Champions League. It's a tremendous record. It really is a tremendous record. So there's got to be perspective in that. A couple of things that at play here, Adam. The European record is pretty exquisite by relation to where we were. And also last year, and the standards that we set last year, it was always going to be a huge, huge ask to maintain that into another season. And I kind of suspected that the intensity and the absolute focus of last year, it takes a toll, and we're seeing it with likes of Kent. It takes a toll mentally and physically. We Kent, I don't think has been fit once this season, and I think he's done well at be playing most weeks. And I think it took its toll last night when you've seen him pull up. And I think there's a couple of players in that kind of area where they're not quite as sharp as they were last year. And it could be because we had really, really the most solid of pre-seasons last year, given the situation with the lockdown and the extended kind of time we had together. And it was shown up in that documentary that Rangers made about the fact that we're able to compartmentalise work with defenders, with the midfield, with the forwards, and really, really get to grips with things. I don't know if that's been the case this year. So I'm totally cool about. I'm not saying totally cool. Who wants to get beat? But I'm not throwing the toys out because I think we're going to get better. I think we have to get better this year, and the fact that we're still competing pretty well in Scotland last night, I think, is probably always going to be the case. I think we're always going to be fighting for second place in this group. I think it's still a real possibility that we can do that. There's still everything to play for. So, I'm copacetic, as they say. There's a good word for you.
I'm pretty similar. I just want to round off that quality conversation, Tess. That always me a bit of chat around the quality of the team that we're facing, and it tends to come in those kind of bigger games, if you like. I'm thinking immediately Porto, Benfica, Feyenoord, Leverkusen, and then this one that they're a good team, or this and all that. But I do think we talk about it in quite a vague way. It's funny though, because sitting at the game last night, and I know European day trippers, etc., you can get all cast of many thousands, but sitting at the game last night, you'd think some people would think we're playing against a junior team with some of the shouts. There was shouts coming from behind me, press them, do this, do that, score. I'm like, I think we need to understand sometimes that we're not saying they're world beaters, Tess. We're not saying they're the greatest version of even themselves that they are, Lyon. But as Andy said, in a game that was kind of even overall, if we go 2-0 down to a team like that and we just go gung-ho and start trying to get goals back, it could end up being a proper sore one.
Yeah, if that game was gone at 2-0, Gerrard would never admit it, and I'd never want him to, but I think he'd have known that as well. So then he's got two choices. We either chase the game to try and appease the crowd and get a doing, because we'd have gaps that they'd have gladly and happily exploited, or you sit in. You don't sort of shut up shop and hope we don't concede anymore, but you play conservatively, shall we say, while still attacking. And obviously that's the option that we went for. Again, I thought after the second goal we tightened up, started playing a bit more of our football, but with absolutely no spark or cohesion. But that's been lacking all season, so that last night wasn't a misnomer in that sense. But yeah, the crowd, the Rangers support, the way we've been brought up with success, and it's spoiled us in a lot of ways. So when we do get nights like that against more expensively assembled opposition, is probably the fairest way to put that. When we do come up against sides like that, you are going to get people who are going to expect Rangers to take the game to them and boss them and be on top. And as you say, that's realistic. That's not going to happen. I'm not quite sure about punching above our weight. I think we've proved over the past two seasons that we're a last 16 Europa League side. That we've done it 2 years in a row. There's no reason why we can't do it again this season. That's where we are. The difference being Lyon are a last 16 Champions League side. That step up, it's huge. They are they play in a stronger league. Their resources are greater than ours due to playing in a stronger league, better TV deal, sponsorship, blah blah blah. So obviously they can attract. They can spend more money on transfer fees and wages, and obviously with that comes a higher standard. So yeah, it's understandable that people are going to get pissed off when we're not being as attacking as we want. We're Rangers. We wouldn't have it any other way, mate. But yeah, you got to be realistic, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
See on that, Adam.
Andy, what?
I was just going to say on the quality equation, we've got players in there that I was a wee bit disappointed with, and I'm going to pick on Joe Aribo. Joe Aribo, I've said on this podcast before, he can kind of do whatever he wants in the game if he gets that killer mentality his manager had, because his ability is unquestionable, and he should or could be doing the kind of things that the likes of Camby was doing for them last night. That killer moment. He is capable of that, and I don't know if it was just last night they were too strong against him individually. But he's a kind of player. Kent, maybe when he was fully fit, certainly Morelos. They three are the players that should be shown their quality. And last night they never came close to it. I thought it's just a wee thing that I think's a missed opportunity for these guys to really show what they're all about.
Yeah, I agree on the Aribo thing. I know that he's beloved by many, and I think he's great, and he absolutely has his place. But when we talk about, oh, he's got great potential and he can go and do this and he can go and do that, he's 25. Like, there comes a point where you can't say you've got great potential anymore. I agree. I think in the bigger games he does a good job as a kind of connector or a link type player. But in terms of going and owning one of these games, I mean, obviously the Braga goal was exceptional. But in terms of owning one of these games, I don't see it too much, and that's not to be critical of him. Overall, I think he does absolutely have his place in the team. But I think it's maybe symptomatic. I guess there's an element, I think, for me, Andy, of a flatness to our play just now. And I think we're kind of getting to the stage where we can be past blaming the disruptions of pre-season, albeit we've had a number of COVID issues, and people talk about a lack of hunger, or possibly a lack of hunger, the players not being able to get themselves up for these games after such a good season last season. I take a wee bit of issue with it personally, Andy. I don't really buy into it. I think given some of the players, what they've been through over the 5+ years that they've been here, never mind when Gerrard came in, I don't think it would be allowed for a team to suddenly drop their levels. I think people love to look for themes and they love to look for examples of history repeating itself in sport, but we barely won the league last year and people were asking if we thought we'd fall off a cliff this year. I just don't really buy into that lack of hunger. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, first of all, define lack of hunger and what you're reading into, because if you're on, I mean, I've seen Rangers teams with a lack of hunger. we have seen them in the no too far distant past, and I've seen players that are not trying a leg, and I don't think that's ever going to be tolerated under the current regime at all. And I think it would stick out like a sore thumb. And I think you need to differentiate between a slight dip in form and fitness and sharpness versus a lack of desire. And I think, I mean, I'll pick out Goldson here because there's noise around him because of his contract situation. As if we've got a divine right to say to somebody, you either play with always having 2-3 years on your contract left, or else you're not committed. I mean, it's just unrealistic, and it's not footed in the real world. It's nonsense, and it's just part and parcel of football now. And I think sometimes football fans, not just Rangers fans, they demand utterly exemplary standards in everything, right? You must be committed by signing this contract. You must be committed to getting at this tackle. You must be committed to play through injury, all this kind of stuff. It's just not realistic. And I mean, we talked about Kent there and how he's not been fit, and we all can see that he's not quite. In fact, he's nowhere near where he was last year when he was at his best. But I mean, after the Celtic game, it came out that he'd been playing with an injury that would have kept a mere mortal out for 4 weeks or something like that. It's a hamstring, and for a guy like him who's sharp, nippy, twists and turns, hamstrings are pretty fucking important, you know. So yeah. I think there's loads of that going on in that team that goes unheralded. I don't think Rangers are in the habit now of broadcasting injuries. You just need to look at how tight they've been with Helander. You know, we don't even know what type of knee injury that is. So there'll be loads of wee niggles and knocks and strains and pulls that players are playing through. So I just do not buy it. I mean, you need to look at Steven Gerrard. You try to tell me that Steven Gerrard's going to watch these players along with his backroom team and allow that to fester or to give them game time. It's not happening.
Just on that Kent point before I move on to ask Tess something else. Look, if he had to play, like you said, if he had to play through the pain against Celtic, fair enough. I can understand that. If he's still doing it 3 weeks later, I think that was possibly an accident waiting to happen. It was those moments when the ball came over the top, Andy. I don't think that's nothing to do with form or working yourself into the game or trying too hard. It's a ball over the top for somebody who's absolutely rapid, and he just looked like he wasn't keen to put those afterburners on at all. I don't think that's anything to do with anything other than he's maybe a little bit nervous that there's a possible hamstring injury there. from what I seen. So I agree with you on that one. I think there's a combination of all those things on top of people going away to red countries and coming back, people getting COVID, people having niggling injuries. I think there is quite a lot of that, but I think we're probably starting to move past that point, or hopefully starting to move past that point. Tess, just the last thing on that general flatness, if you want to call it, and I don't just mean on the pitch, I mean in the stands, etc. I think the Malmo losses were a big disappointment, I think, for the fans. I don't think many people thought it would be plain sailing to get into the Champions League, but you know what it's like. Once you have that carrot there, it almost becomes the expectation or a confirmed aspiration, if you like. So it doesn't make it any less disappointing to go out if it was still a potential. But I do think it sort of messed a little bit with expectations. The reactions, for example, to going through against Alashkert for the Europa were so much more muted than when we qualified against Ufa, Legia Warsaw or Galatasaray. Obviously, it's great to be in the Europa, but do you think that kind of disappointment factor is kind of clouding things just now in the early months?
It possibly is, mate, yeah, but I think that's more... I don't think that's just the Rangers support. That's football in general. We've been told for 30 years now that the Champions League is a be-all and end-all of anything. And if you're not in it, then you're nothing. You've got teams you've got absolute nothing clubs in the English Premier League who will get into the Europa League. I look at Leicester a couple of years ago, a complete no-mark nothing club, and they were taking it for granted because they'd rather finish fourth in the Premier League to get in the Champions League. You know, it's ridiculous that the bottom line is you can only piss with the cock you've got, right? We can only win the competition that we're in. We're in the Europa League. Yet, it'd be nice to be in the Champions League and get a little bit more money. It would be nice to see a better standard of opposition play at Ibrox. Oh, don't get me wrong, I go to watch Rangers, not who we're playing, but you know when you get your Milans and your Juventuses and your Real Madrids coming to town, it's glamour. You know what I mean? You can't deny that. But the fact of the matter is, we weren't good enough to get in the Champions League. If we were good enough to be in the Champions League, mate, we'd have beat Malmo, we'd be in it. We weren't good enough. It's gone, forget about it, leave it. Win the league this season, we go straight into the group stages next year. We'll think about it next August. We're in the Europa League now. We've all, players, fans, everybody, we've all got to realise that's where we are. That is our level. We're a last 16 Europa League club. Now we need to push on from there. And the way we're going to push on from there is to get to that level again and then advance. But to get to that level, we've all got to turn up. You know what I mean? I'm not saying the performance yesterday, as I've said. Although we lost 2-0, I don't know if it's because I'd expected us to lose by that scoreline, so I wasn't surprised or really disappointed. But we played well. We played as well as we played all season in fits and starts. One goal was complete circus stuff. The other goal was absolute wildy. It happened. It's gone. We move on. But what we've got to stop doing is taking it for granted, because that's where we are. That's our level. You know, we've done absolutely incredible in Europe under Gerrard. In the 3 seasons previous to this, the main thing that he's done for us all, he's given us our pride back. He's given us our pride back in the stand. He's given us our pride back on the park. People in Europe now don't want to come to play at Ibrox in European nights because of how Gerrard's rejuvenated us. It'd be such a shame if people start taking that for granted. Just think some of our best teams in our lifetime, certainly in the 90s, we were shit in Europe, mate. You know, we were awful. We obviously we were chasing the 9, and domestic success was, I suppose you'd say, the priority, the way things turned out. But you know, we were awful in Europe. Prior to Gerrard coming, there was the debacle of progress. You know, Super Ali's first season as manager, we managed to go at him both the qualifying round. So people have got to look back at how it was with previous successful Rangers teams and realise that, in a way, we've never had it so good. We shouldn't be taking this for granted, mate. We should all be enjoying the ride. And European nights at Ibrox should never be treated as a bonus, because that's where we should be, mate. We're Rangers Football Club. We're one of the biggest teams in the world. We should be playing group stage European football, right? But what the fans have got to do is realise that we're not elevated to that next level yet. What we've got, back the players, realise that where we are is where we deserve to be. So what I mean, don't take it for granted. Look, I can't believe we're even having this conversation, because it's ridiculous, but it's a symptom of modern football, mate. If you ain't in the Premier League or the Champions League, you're nothing. You know, and a team like Rangers, I'm not saying we should be grateful to be in Europe, but when you look at the last 10 years, then we didn't know if we'd ever see these days again. You know, like I say, Gerrard's given us our pride back on the European theatre. We've had some great European nights, Arbacks over the years. And if people are taking that kind of stuff for granted, or are bored, or wishing there was somewhere else. Go somewhere else. There's plenty of people who want to be able to take your seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, I guess just on that then, when you've got such incremental progress as there's been over the last 3 years, and now the fact that we're champions, is it just natural that there's going to be a general raising of expectations, and like Tess said, maybe not taking it for granted, but we've qualified for this 3 years in a row already. It's now the base expectation. If we didn't get there, it's a disaster, but if we're there, then fair enough, but we could have got better. Do you think that's generally fair, that we would say the support maybe sits on it?
Yes, I mean, Tess is right, but the expectation is healthy. I mean, in any walk of life, doesn't matter football or your personal life, whatever, your expectations, incremental improvement is unstoppable, because you can always go an inch more. You can always go an inch more, and that's where you get to places. And I mean, what Tess is saying is right, because you've got to get the balance between stopping to smell the roses but wanting more. And I mean, we're smelling roses because we were smelling shit for that long, right? And we were in the pits. And it's becoming a bit of a distant memory now, because we've kind of exercised all the demons, and that title last year was a kind of the final thing we had today, and that's why there was such an outpouring of joy. But by the same token, you're completely right, Adam, that we and I made a comment on Twitter, we qualified this year and there wasn't much of a fanfare, as Tess says. It was kind of like, well, good, we're back in the Europa League group stages. We're taking it for granted already, and we shouldn't, because there's an uncomfortable truth in that at this moment in time, our level is Europa League. If we'd get into the Champions League this year, it would have been a stupendous achievement, financially supercharge the club. But football-wise, what a stretch it would have been, I think, personally speaking. And I think we would have been maybe in territory where, we'd have had a few arse smackings. But, as Tess says as well, that is then how you get that next inch, because you get more finance, your players become better for it. And this is why this season's so important. This season is actually more important financially than last year could ever be, because of the automatic entry. So we've got to keep our eye on the prize. We're in a very good place. We've got to get better. But the fact that we're, the old adage that you win when you're playing poorly is a sign of champions, that's kind of where we are just now domestically. And Europa League, I still think, Brøndby and Sparta Prague, they should be looking at Rangers and saying, right, we've got really tough games home and away against these teams, because we're fairly seasoned and respectable European team just now, and that's thanks to Gerrard. I think, I'm probably straying back to football here, but injuries will play a big part in how we do European, because I think that the homegrown rule has kind of creeped up in us. I bet half the fans in Ibrox last night don't know anything about that homegrown rule, but it's starting to hurt us, not quite as much as the old foreigner rule, 3 foreigner rule, but it is going to affect our ability to compete. So, let's smell the roses, but let's be realistic. We always want more, and that's totally healthy. That's what Rangers are born from in the goofy.
I think context is a funny thing. I think we're so used to, we talk about last season and obviously we went unbeaten and it was relentless, etc. But we've kind of been playing this way since about January, just kind of managing, getting through the games, clocking up victories for the most part, and just powering on. It was really this time last year with that great run, as you mentioned, pre-season, everything falling for us, unbeaten throughout the Europa groups. That was where we won the league, and that's where the season was really from January onwards. For me, it was just that managing it, getting through, and we're playing that way now. Obviously, I would say we had more highs last season, in 2021, than we've maybe had this year in terms of player performance, etc. But we're just kind of getting through a little bit, I think, just now.
Yeah, and it goes back to, if you're a functional team, and Tess referred to the Walker's team and stuff like that. Adam, you old enough to remember that?
Aye, just about, aye.
Just about. And what you had there was a team that when they were on their game, they were brilliant, and you had superstars and you had fantastic quality. But then when the kind of levels dipped, you still had a functional team that could get through games, and it's that kind of baseline standard and then you just need to dip your head above that racing standard for 5-10 minutes in the game, and it's enough to get you the 3 points. And so we don't need to be firing on all cylinders to still be a competitive team and to be a very hard team to beat and to find a match winner here or there. That's a really good place to be in, because I think, I mean, our separated brethren across the road, they're going through their Warburton and steroids period, and they're going to find that, if you're not firing on all cylinders, you've got to find an alternative way to win games. And they will find that at away grounds this year when it's not quite going for them. And then they will be relying on that spark of genius or whatever. We are far more weathered in terms of being able to do that now. I mean, St Johnstone's a case in point. But we're playing all right. We're controlling the game. We weren't really doing much in terms of the final third. But we know that at some point somebody's going to chip in with a bit of brilliance. And that's what happens. So, we find ways to win, and we're in the rhythm of it. That you can't get that. You've got to earn it.
David mentioned last night on one of the, I think it's the post-match pod or the press conference pod, that it had a very 7-in-a-row feel about it just now. I think that's a nice way to sum it up. If the end game is us getting the title again, then I think everybody will be happy with that. Tess, just to finish off before we move on to Motherwell and talk about some of the players, Balogun, lots of people rightly upset about Hellander's injury and how short it leaves it, but I thought Balogun did really well last night. Appreciate what Andy said earlier on about the difference between Dembele and Slimani, but Slimani is still a good striker as well, and they had that threat of a can be cutting inside too. But other than maybe a header that he headed back into danger in his own half, Balogun, I thought overall he did really well.
That's twice he's answered the call now when we've needed a mate, and he's letting us down. Obviously, at right back against Celtic, and then last night he's a decent player. His last game in Europe last season, obviously when he got sent off against Slavia Prague, he didn't exactly cover himself in glory that night. But last night, mate, I thought he was. There's a definite shout for saying that he was our best player. He came in, he did what he had to do. There's every chance that he'd have played had been fit anyway because of the way that Lyon play. So I think last night was a game that was set up for his skill set. And he did well. Again, they were all caught napping a wee bit for the second goal. Like I say, a bit of pinball in the 6-yard box, mate. It's that you never like to see that, but there's not really that much he himself could have done about it. But yeah, I thought he looked pretty solid again, mate. And whilst we all wish Hallander a speedy recovery, if we've got to go through till Christmas with a centre-back partnership of Goldson and Balogun, I don't think you'll hear many people complaining.
Yeah, I've always thought Balogun gets a wee bit of unfair criticism. Positionally, he can sometimes be a wee bit shaky, but I'm more than happy with him as a rotation option. And if he has to come in and do his job here, fingers crossed he can do it well. I don't see there being too much of an issue there. Andy, John Lundstram, for me, I thought he still looked a little bit clunky at times with the ball at his feet. There was a few decisions that I thought he could have made a wee bit better. Overall, though, I thought he had a fairly good game, particularly when he moved deeper into that number 6 role, although you could argue that was at the time as Lyon also took a step back, so there's maybe a double-edged sword there, but I thought it was a good performance. The manager himself said he thinks that was probably his best performance for us so far.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I mean, I've been watching him closely because it's a good signing, and we're talking about finances and everything else, and to get a guy like that from down south on a Bosman, that's good work. That's a functioning football department. You don't get that by accident, and he can contribute. We're well aware of where it's went wrong from this season in terms of Tannadice and then Malmo was an utter disaster for him. But I thought last night was his best game. I thought, as you say, Adam, he became more in himself when he moved more centrally. And a wee bit deeper, just as he was against Dunfermline. I'm not comparing Dunfermline to Lyon, but I don't think it's any coincidence. These 2 games where he's looked the most fluid and the most relaxed and comfortable and probably his most effective is when he's been central. And when he's been looking shaky and vulnerable and a bit of a weak link, it's when he's the further wide you put him, to be honest. So I've not really got any fears about Lundstram. I really don't. I think that he's going to be one of these players that grows into being a Rangers player. And I think what will probably go in his favour is the more we rest Davis, because I think he's a natural fit for that position. And he can contribute. I mean, he can score goals. We've seen him come very, very close to getting an equaliser last night. I'd like to see him do more of that, get closer to the opposition penalty box and the edge of the penalty box and have a shot, because we don't do that as a team enough. So I was talking about this to my dad, because he was like, oh, he's not going to do it and all the rest of it. And I said, listen, how many times have we been through this where we've signed a player, we've had an expectation, we've all made our minds up after 2 months, 3 months. Yep. It's a hard thing to come in and be a Rangers player off the bat. You can, and I always, and folk that listen to the pod will say, oh, Andy's getting back to this again. I always get back to Naismith. Stephen Naismith, good young player, knew the SPFL or SPL at the time, inside out, knew Rangers inside out because he was a fan, for goodness sake, came in, and it took him 2 seasons to reach the standard, right? And that's just one example. The place is littered with examples where it's taken him a good season to bed in. You can look at Aribo as the same. You know, it took him a year to get to the standard where he was the kind of responsibility that was required for his position. It happens all the time. So I've no fears about him. I think he'll get better. I think you'll probably see him more often in the team now as a starter. And it might just coincide with Davis getting a wee bit more rest here. So no fears for me. I think he'll get much better. I'm away to get Lundstrom printed in the back of my strip.
You'll need to get Andy King scraped off the back of it first before you get Lundstrom on.
What an opportunity missed Andy King was.
Tess, looking ahead to Flag Day then on Sunday, Motherwell at Ibrox. It's going to be a great day. It'll be great to celebrate the title one more time. It feels a wee bit weird celebrating Flag Day in the middle of September, but it's been a weird 18 months or so. Hopefully, bit of chat about whether this will be closure on the title or not, but hopefully whatever it is, it gives us a spark to kick us on and give us incentive to start getting back to some of that free-flowing football we were seeing at times last year. I'm sure you're looking forward to it.
Mate, I absolutely cannot wait. I was at the last Flag Day in 2011 against Hearts. That was a interesting weekend, shall we say. But no, I remember, was it a 1-1 draw that day, if I remember correctly? So yeah, I was at the last one and I can't wait. In fact, when we were driving back home to Derby, it came on the radio that Amy Winehouse had died. So it was a very unusual weekend, that was. But no, this one, mate, I'm really looking forward to it. I've only managed to get to 2 games this season because of my work and that, and because I have to have a couple of days off of midweek games. I'm saving them for later on in the in Europe. So I've only managed to get to 2 games. So I'm absolutely buzzing to get back up the road on Sunday. Flag Day, it's something. Like I said, the last one was July 2011. We've waited over 10 years for this. I think at the end of the old firm, when there was that moment when the players, it seemed like about 10 minutes. It seemed like it was maybe 4 or 5 minutes, but it seemed like about 10 minutes when the players were just stood there and then they did a little lap of honour. Because that's the first time that we'd had Malmo was a full house, but we lost that one. But this was the first time after a big game we'd had a full Ibrox and we got to celebrate with the players. And whilst you wouldn't call it a lap of honour they were doing. You could tell that was their moment to reconnect with us, and it was beautiful, mate. It was really, I mean, winning an old firm is special anyway, but you've only got to see the videos after the match to know how special it was. I can't remember anything like it. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And Sunday's going to be the same thing, mate, because we never got to see them lift the trophy, but we'll all be there together. Friends and family will all be there together at Ibrox on Sunday, mate, and we'll get to see them raise that flag. Like I say, it's been 10 years coming. We're more than due the success that we're getting at the moment. You know, we're more than due the good times back. And like I said, I just can't wait to get back. I mean, I can't wait to get back up there, see them raise the league flag. I think we'll have a good performance, and I think we're gonna get a big win on Sunday, because I think that. I'm not going to say that they're going to put last season to further exercise any ghosts of the past, but I just think that the crowd will carry them through. I think it's going to be like a party day. You know what I mean? Obviously, if we're losing at half time, or if it's like Motherwell at Ibrox in December last year, it might not be. But I just got a feeling everyone's going to be in a good mood. Everyone's going to be happy. You know what I mean? It's going to be a really nice day. I fancy us for a performance in a big win. And like I say, mate, I'm just pure buzzing for it now.
Yeah, I hope so. Andy, it looks like Kent will definitely be it for this one. The manager mentioned maybe not even seeing him until after next international break. He mentioned Morelos has a wee bit of a niggle as well. It's obviously disappointing, and you don't want any players to be missing out, but the big chances for players like Scott Wright and Fashion Sakala to get a wee bit more of a longer run in the team. We'll see. I would imagine we'll see one of them certainly on Sunday. We've got such a big squad. When players go out, you need to have players champing at the bit to come in to replace them.
Yep, and you're correct. It's going to be an opportunity for some players there. Morelos is the one that we miss. I mean, I've been on record as saying that he knits it together, and when he's not playing, we are a different team altogether, and not in a good way. But in saying that, Roof brings something different. His movement's dynamite. He looks sharp at this moment in time. He looks fit. He has a bright spark at this moment in time, and I think he's just on the cusp of hitting some form. Hopefully, I'm interested to see when Bakuna gets a show, because he is, he's a. I may be wrong here, but he's no far off a Kent type player when he's on his game. He could offer the same kind of things for us as one of the front three as Kent. Right, he's become a legend before his time. I think we have high hopes for him. I think they're a wee bit overstated, I've got to be honest, but he has a lot of potential, Adam. I think, right, if he develops, and I know we're saying develop, you're talking about Rebo being 25 and was right, 22, 23 or something like that. But in Rangers terms, that's still young, and he can do something in the SPFL. Last night might have just been a wee bit touch too high in terms of standard, but certainly he should be coming in and being a central figure for us in games like Sunday if he gets a nod.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought Sakala did okay when he came on last night. I feel a little bit for him because if he's getting flung on in the
it's hard for him.
And if it's 15-20 minutes every week or so. So if Morelos does miss the game, we don't know yet, obviously, as we record on Friday night, I think Sakala probably through the middle with Roof and right behind them would be pretty much what I would expect.
Do you not think that Sakala is tailor-made as a wide striker on the right-hand side? I mean, we've seen him a couple of times kind of get to the byline, get by players by sheer will and force his pace as opposed to trickery. I think he could be pretty potent out there.
Yeah,
interchanging front line would look good. If you've got Roof, Sakala, and probably Wright. I mean, one of the factors of our play last season and this season when we've been coherent is that front three interchanging. Whoever he puts up there can play on either flank and through the middle, and that's good because it drags defenders all over the place. And that's when you had the likes of an Arthur and a Rebo coming through from midfield and getting the goals. So hopefully Sakala come. I mean, let's be right, Alfie's not kicked his own arse for weeks now. And Ryan Kent's been badly out of form. So whilst I'd never wish injury on any of our players, and you want them back to full fitness as soon as possible, if you had to choose two that were going to be out for a little bit, Alfie and Kent, you ain't shedding too many tears. Well, I'm not anyway, because I think they needed a rest. It's sad that it's been enforced by injury, but I think a rest will do a wee bit of good. So, hopefully Sakala comes in. He looks a wee bit raw, but the only way that's going to improve is to play matches, mate. Hopefully that starts on Sunday. Scott Wright's got to come in, you'd think, as a tailor-made replacement for Kent. We've been raving about him since he came in January, mate. We've won a watch there, but he's another player. He's only going to get better by playing matches. That starts on Sunday. So, again, whilst I'd never want our players to get injured, that's absolutely not what I'm saying at all. But Morelos and Kent needed a rest. It's sad that it's enforced, but a rest they're going to get. The players who come in now have got to show why. Scott Wright's already shown why he's a Rangers player. I like him. He's going to get better. To do that in his matches. So it's now time for Sakala to step up and show why he's a Rangers player. Start proving it. You know what I mean? He's not had many chances so far. Now he's got his chance. Gobble with both hands. Give Motherwell a doing on Sunday, and let's get the season back on track properly.
Absolutely. Okay, I think that will do us there. So all that's left for me to say is I hope everyone has a fantastic Flag Day on Sunday. Thank you all for the continued support of Heart and Hand. It's very much appreciated. Tess, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me, mate. It's always nice to be on and chat about the Rangers. So yeah, cheers for having me, matey.
Absolutely. And Andy, you've got a wee shout out to do.
I've got a wee shout out. I feel like Tiger Tim. No, not Tiger Tim. Christ, why'd I pick him? George Bowie. We shout out to Stephen at Ironside and his daughter Annabelle. They were on my bus last night. He's a member of the Dallas Rangers Supporters Club, and Annabelle's just starting uni in Scotland. So He mentioned he was a Heart and Hand listener. He was a bit starstruck to meet me, I've got to say.
Oh,
That's
aye.
not true. That's not true. But aye, we shout out to him. I hope you're home and safe.
Brilliant. And thank you, Andy, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Okay, and again, thank you all for the support. We'll be back next week.